Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Fort Macon State Park. Our final artillery demonstration of the afternoon right here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. I'm going to have the crew load up and fire one round. It will be loud. Please make sure you cover your ears. Make sure you cover your kids' ears. Once they have fired that round and secured the piece, I'll talk to you a little bit about the gun and about the crew and their various duties and responsibilities, what it is they do to make this cannon fire. And then once we're done with that, they'll load up and fire a second round. So, I'm going to let them go ahead and get loaded up. Again, it will be loud.
Carlito, tápate las orejas.
Sir, please.
Tápate los oídos. It's like
Mami, tú tienes que taparte.
Good. Ready.
Okay.
as hard as you can. That was funny.
Wow.
Look at all that. That was fun. Did you like it, Carlita? I did my camera shake.
What in the world? That was so amazing.
I didn't catch it on.
¿Dónde está la rosa?
¿Va a ser otra? ¿O es la última? No era tanto. Can you do it this time? Recordar.
Folks, the gun
Okay.
we're firing today is the U.S. model 1841 6-pounder. It is named a 6-pounder because the weight of the solid shot that it would fire is 6 pounds. Pretty simple. What I'm holding here in my hand is what's called a fixed round of ammunition. If we were firing this gun live, this is the ammunition we'd be firing. I got a 6-pound solid iron cannonball. I've got a wooden disc called a sabot, and I've got the powder charge in this linen bag right here. It's all held together with these tin straps. This would all go into the cannon together, be loaded together, and fired out. This gun could also fire anti-personnel rounds such as exploding shells and canister shot. But this is your typical solid shot ammunition for this gun. This is a smooth bore gun, so it's like a shotgun. It fires a round ball. It's got a range of just short of a mile, about 7/8 of a mile. And this is one of the standard artillery pieces of the American Civil War. It actually was the workhorse artillery piece of the United States Army during the war with Mexico in the 1840s. But there were many, many of them still in service when the American Civil War started in 1861. They saw service throughout the war in both armies. And this one, even though it was not here at Fort Macon, is an original barrel. It was manufactured in 1864 in Cincinnati, Ohio. So this is an original barrel on reproduction carriage. Now, you may have noticed you have a whole crew here that does various duties to load and fire this cannon. The entire crew has to work together to make this all happen. Every man on this crew knows how to do every job on the cannon. They aren't stuck in one position. And they're cross-trained so that they can do every position on the gun. so that in a combat situation, when they start taking casualties, they can fill in as needed. So every man on this crew is trained to do any position that he is needed to do. I'm going to go around. These positions are numbered. You have number 1, 2, 3, and 4 up here at the cannon, and I'll tell you a little bit about what they do, starting with the 2 men in the front. The 2 men in the front are number 1 and 2. Their primary responsibility is cleaning and loading the cannon. They both wear heavy leather gauntlets or gloves on their hands. In a combat situation, when you're rapidly firing this cannon, the barrel would get pretty hot, and so they're wearing the gauntlets to keep themselves from being burned on the cannon barrel. Number 1 is responsible for cleaning and loading. He's got an implement called the sponge rammer. On one end of the staff, you've got a wet woolen sponge. On the other end of the staff, you have a wooden rammer head. At the beginning of the loading process, he's going to take that wet woolen sponge and run it down the barrel, not only to clean the gun out, but also to extinguish any sparks that might be left in there from the previous shot. That fixed round that I just showed you, the powder is encased in a cloth bag. You don't want to put a cloth bag of gunpowder in there if you've got sparks in the barrel, do you? What's going to happen? It's going to go boom. He's going to be severely injured, if not killed, and other men on the crew might be injured as well. So it's very, very important that he sponge that barrel out and do a dang good job of it. Then once the ammunition is brought forward and placed into the muzzle, he will take the rammer in and he will ram that charge down. This is a muzzle-loaded artillery piece. The ammunition goes in the front, it's rammed down, and then fired back out. So number 1 is responsible for swabbing out the bore and ramming down the ammunition once it's placed in the cannon. He is assisted by number 2. Number 2 has a very interesting looking implement there called the worm. It's like a big iron corkscrew on the end of the staff. The reason he uses that implement is to get pieces of that cartridge bag that are left in the barrel after firing and drag all that stuff out of there. The blank charges that we're firing today are manufactured out of aluminum foil. When we fire this cannon, some of that foil is still left in the barrel. We got to use a worm to go in there and drag that stuff out of there because it could harbor sparks, which would then lead to the unfortunate situation for the number 1 man. So the worm is a very important implement used for pulling debris out of the cannon barrel before it's loaded. Then number 2 will also accept the ammunition when it's brought up and place it into the barrel for number 1 to ram down. So number 1 and 2 are working together to clean and load the cannon. That is their primary responsibility. Now that brings me to number 3. Number 3 is the busiest man on the gun crew. He's got a lot of different duties, a lot of different responsibilities. He is the one person on the gun crew who's in constant motion throughout this whole process. Starting with the loading process, you'll notice on his thumb, he's got a leather sleeve called a thumb stall. What he's going to do during the loading process, he's going to place his thumb over the hole in the back of the cannon barrel there called the vent. By tending vent, closing off the vent, what he's doing is he's preventing air from getting into the back of the cannon barrel, thereby helping to extinguish those sparks that are going to be in there. So you'll notice the whole time number 1 and number 2 are doing the cleaning and loading process, he is tending vent. He's on that vent, making sure that no air gets into the barrel. Once the piece is loaded, he's going to assist the gunner in aiming the piece. He's going to come back here to the trail handspike. If the gunner wants to move the gun side to side to bring it on target, he will indicate such, and the number 3 man will move the gun as per the gunner's instructions to help aim it. Finally, he's going to prime the piece for firing. He's got a long brass pick called a priming wire. He's going to run that down the vent, poke a hole in the powder bag so that the powder is exposed and it can be detonated to fire the cannon. Now we get to number 4 here. Number 4 has what a lot of people would probably consider to be the coolest job on the cannon crew. He actually gets to fire the cannon. He's got a long lanyard here, and on the end of the lanyard he has what's called a friction primer. This is the detonator that detonates the cannon. We're not firing this cannon with fuses or wicks or cigars or any of that kind of nonsense that you see on the movies. Friction primer is a very simple thing. It's a hollow brass or copper tube about the size of a .22 rifle cartridge. It's got a wire crimped into the top of it that's serrated and got a sparking compound in there. When he pulls the lanyard, it rips the wire out of the top of the primer. The primer fires down through the vent into the powder charge and detonates the cannon. Pretty simple. Friction primer is attached to the end of this long lanyard. Why? Because it allows number 4 to get out from behind the cannon when he fires it. We're firing blank charges today. The cannon does not recoil when you fire blank charges. When you fire live charges, however, this gun will recoil 10 to 15 feet. He doesn't want to be standing behind it when it fires because it's going to run him over and he's going to have a very bad day. So, you know, he gets probably the coolest job on the cannon, and the lanyard allows him to get out of the way. We've got 2 men back here at the box. Number 5 carries the bag with the ammunition. He's going to take the ammunition from the box that the gunner calls for. He's going to run it up. The gunner will check it and make sure it's the proper ammunition. Then he can carry it forward to number 2, deliver it to number 2 so it can be loaded into the cannon. Now, you might think that's kind of a boring job, running back and forth from the limber chest where the ammunition is stored up to the cannon. But, you know, it's actually a pretty dangerous job because he's carrying explosives in a fairly small, flimsy leather pouch back and forth. If, you know, something were to go wrong and he were to get hit, it's a bad day for him too. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is all these guys have some danger involved in what they're doing here, particularly in a combat situation. Then the man at the box, there actually normally be 2 men at the box. When the gunner calls for the ammunition, the men at the box are going to, first of all, select the proper type of ammunition, fix the ammunition however it needs to be fixed, and place it into the bag for the number 5 man to run forward. So the men at the box are extremely important because they're primarily responsible for handling the ammunition and making sure that what the gunner wants is what the gunner gets. And that brings us finally to the gunner. The gunner is in command of the piece. He is in charge of the piece. The piece can only be loaded and fired on his command, but he's got a lot of responsibility. He's got a lot of things he's got to do. He's got to aim the piece, as you saw. He has number 3 helping aim the piece on the side-to-side motion with the trail hand sight. But he's also got his sight there called the pendulum Haas sight that sits on the rear of the breech there. He lines that up with a post sight on the front of the barrel, and he uses the elevating screw underneath the breech to raise or lower the muzzle of the cannon to adjust his range. All the things he has to think about. He has to visually estimate distance to target. He has to estimate time of flight to get to the target. If he's firing an exploding shell, he has to cut the fuse properly so it will explode when it's supposed to. And he's got to figure out all of this in his head, on the fly, while commanding the gun at the same time and making sure the crew is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the gunner cannot take a mental day off. He's got to be on all the time. He's got to know what's going on. He's got to be aware of the situation. But he is in control of the gun. He's taking orders from higher level battery officers, but he is in control of the gun. So that's the operation of the gun. Like I said, all these guys have to work together. They have to be in sync. They have to be well drilled, well trained, and well disciplined. In a combat situation, you know, what we're doing here today for demonstration purposes, we're doing this very deliberately, very slowly. In a combat situation, they'd be able to crank off 2 rounds a minute on this cannon. A well-trained, well-drilled crew could get about 2 rounds a minute off, no problem. So, you know, what we're doing here today certainly is much slower than that, but we're doing it for demonstration purposes. Right now, the crew is going to load and fire a 2nd round. Once they have fired the round, they will secure the gun. Once the gun is secure, if you want to come up and ask questions or take a closer look, you're welcome to do that. But please give the crew a chance to secure the gun before you approach.
I'm going to put my headphones.
Load!
Oh, no. Oh, no.